funny enough, is because Pat Leonard produced Roger's next album after I'd done the Floyd, he produced, and which is funny because he co-wrote a song on Momentary Lapse of Reason,
Yep.
the Floyd record,
Yep.
and then he was asked to produce Amused to Death, which he did, and I was actually asked to play on that by by Pat, and it was quite funny, again, it's this thing of being young. I thought, whoa, that'd be hilarious. What a great gag that would be. And I thought, well, obviously, I need to ask David. And so I asked David and I said, David, actually, I've been asked to play on Roger's album. Would you be all right with that? He goes, yeah, of course, it's fine. And I just thought about it for a second. I thought, it isn't, is it? It really isn't. It's not. So I didn't. So I turned it down, unlike some people. But I have worked with him I played with him and David at a Palestinian benefit. So, which was, and the funny thing, the idea was, I think one of them just said, "I'll do it," but the deal is, we have to play "To Know Him Is to Love Him," right? Which is a lovely gag and sounds great on paper. And apparently, it's not just that. It's not being obtuse. It's Pink Floyd used to do that as a sound check number. Okay. Back in the day, which I would love to. I'd love to hear a recording of Pink Floyd playing "To Know Him Is to Love Him." But then, and it was all very funny. It was just going to go, they were going to get up and do it. But then it all got, well, Roger wanted to change the key, and then there's this part, and then I can't sing this part, and then someone needs to do this part, and it's suddenly like, well, it's just, if we can't just get up and do it, it's not funny. Well, we're going to have to fucking labor over this thing. It's not really a great gag anymore, is it? So, I can't remember if we did it or not, actually. But it was great to do that. And then, of course, Roger came and sang with the Saucerful of Secrets.
Yeah.
That's in New York. But those were simpler times.
There you go. So was that how you got into Pink Floyd then? That connection with your friend again, like saying, "Come on."
It was, no. I got into Pink. No, it was. I'd first been brought to David's attention because I was playing for Dream Academy, Nick Laird-Clew's band, and I'd played on some demos, and which I think David then went on and produced, and it's because Nick Laird-Clew, who he now does all the music for Nick Broomfield's movies, and who's still, he's still the most irrepressible, enthusiastic, oh God, yes, wow, sort of character. Brilliant, something I envy. Again, and he and he'd obviously, he played what I'd done on his tracks to David, and David had probably gone, "That's all right." And of course, Nick's gone, "David thinks you're amazing. He thinks you're incredible." So, sure, he doesn't. And we supported David on his solo tour at this in Birmingham. And so I met David, and again, Nick's going, "David's dying to meet you." He really wants to. He really isn't. And so I was sort of presented. I was stuck with David backstage, and it was just because David's not the chattiest guy in the world. He doesn't. Fantastic on email, though, must be said. Okay. That's his great medium. And we had this excruciating, awful meeting where just no one said anything, and him being the ranking officer got to walk away. And then I just started bumping into him places. I was obviously getting invited to better parties because I just started seeing him out. Also because unlike other sort of mega rock stars, who all inhabit, you only ever saw at gigs or at really swanky things in Chelsea or in Mayfair, right? That's where they lived. Yep. Okay, all that lot. David and Rick Wright were West 11. They were Ladbroke Grove boys, which is not Notting Hill, not like it is now. But then Notting Hill was the coolest place in London, and it was everywhere up and down. And it was, but you wouldn't find any Claptons or Jaggers up there. So I think that's the thing that suddenly made me think, oh, these guys feel like home, because And so I used to, David used to go to 192, the wine bar we all went to, and so then it was basically he was coming in to play with Brian Ferry when I was working with Brian. So I kind of got to, I say got to know him. I was absolutely terrified of him, but and I think that's how it came. And then then I had this thing of I went on holiday to Thailand, my girlfriend too, and it was one of those ironic things where back in the days where you'd buy bootleg cassettes, right, of things. And I bought a copy of The Wall, which actually only had half the album on it. And I went on this total sort of Gilmour tip when I was on holiday. And I got back, and of course, this is back in the days of answer phones.
Yep.
And when I think about it, I could have. I don't think I had one of those remote things where you could get it to play your answers down the phone, but I don't think they worked internationally or something. You know, it's the 80s, mate. And I got back, and there's all these messages from David saying, I'm doing this Amnesty International gig with Kate Bush. You know, do you want to come and play with me? And then like, hi Guy, I really want you for this gig. I'm gonna come play with you.
No.
Hi Guy, the gig's tomorrow. And then okay, sorry Guy.
Oh no.
And then I got there, it was just like, oh no, that was my one chance, you know, and I blew it. So but then like really not long after that, in fact I saw it in Q magazine, which was brand new. It had just come out, Q magazine, and there was this thing about them doing an album. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I got a call from David out of the blue. And he was in LA. And it was, and this actually set the scene for my relationship with David for the next 40 years. We just said, hello guys. So I don't know if you've seen, but you know, we're putting Pink Floyd back together and going on the road. So I've got two questions really. One, would you be interested? And would you be available? It's 13 months. So I think I could muster some interest, David. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I'm available. And he went, oh, not working then.
Ouch. Fantastic. And as you said, it was a grueling 13 months by the sound of things.
Yeah, well, it was done. It was done like a school year. That's what's sweet about it. Look about in that it was we went over, although it was August, we went over to rehearse in Toronto. And so, yeah, we basically did the Christmas term in America when we came back. And we had 4 weeks at Christmas, just like at school.
Yep.
And then we had the spring term where we went to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and probably a bit more America. And then it was the Easter holidays. Came home again. And then it was Europe. And then there was.
Did someone have problem with childcare or something? Did they need to get home to look after the kids? Was that the issue?
I think that was probably like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was what these are the days. It was structured around a tax year, I believe. This is back when everyone used to do tax years out. Mm-hmm. In fact, because what's funny was, I mean, which I would never do, but what was funny was when I got the gig, top rate tax was 60%. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm not going to make any money anyway. I'm just going to buy some new suits and get smashed, and it'll be great. But then literally just after I got the gig, they cut the top rate tax rate to 40%. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you join in a band like Pink Floyd, I mean, the iconic, the legendary, I mean, the distinct sound. They've got a rich history, an iconic bass player as well in the past, with obviously Roger. So how did you approach kind of stepping into the role as the band's kind of bassist at this point then?
I got it all wrong.
Okay.
I got it all wrong in that I was playing all the wrong basses. I was too in my own, it was the 80s. The 80s were about bass players. I was one of those kids, and it was all, playing bass was all about putting your stamp on stuff.
Yeah.
And much as I tried, and it took me a long time which I think actually in a lot of cases kind of worked, but it was like, but there's stuff, like I said, things like, although I've had to reappraise a lot of the stuff I hated, I've kind of reappraised with fullness of time, especially during lockdown, when I did this series of YouTube videos, Lockdown Lips, and there was all this stuff that I hated and have been so embarrassed about for years, like the slap break in Brick in the Wall, and my bass solo and Money. And it turns out that people are incredibly fond of them and attached to them, so that's actually really, really nice. Which is why when they redid Momentary Lapse of Delicate Sound of Thunder, and my bass solo got taken out of Money, and any time up to a few years ago, I would have been like, oh, thank Christ for that. But now I'm like, no, what'd you do that for? I actually get why you do it, because it just makes the song so long. And, you know, people want to listen to it are bass players, and they can find versions of it online. So I'm not really bothered.
Fantastic.
But, you know, because you've got to be honest that a lot of people are just going to skip through it anyway. Non-bass players are just going to skip through it.
Absolutely. And then we have to mention The Division Bell, another huge album, #1 all over the world. And I think Nick Mason had said in an interview that your playing influenced the mood of that record as well. So tell me about what you remember with the recording and the putting together of that record.
Well, that's not. I don't think that's really the recording of it. I think what Nick's talking about there, and bless him, that's very, very kind of him to say, is I got what was they decided to start the album in the way that Pink Floyd used to start albums when they were sort of still mates, which was, or rather than someone just presenting their work to the band, which was where they just go in the studio and just, you know, jam for weeks, and just whatever came out, they would then whittle down and whittle down. And so they decided to go and do that at Britannia Row, with just the three of them and me,
yeah,
which was an amazing thing to be asked to go and join in on. And also, but as part of the sort of soap opera that my life with Pink Floyd is that I'd been going out with Gala, Rick's daughter, for a bit, and we'd just been away for our first holiday. Right? We went to Mexico for one of the most magical holidays I've ever had. 3 weeks going around Mayan ruins, backpacking, you know. And so I'd literally just got home from that. And because I lived just around the corner for Rick, I was designated as his driver. So I was driving to and from the studio every day. And I mean, I loved Nick, I adored him, but you know, that things were still quite fresh, and you know, I certainly wasn't going out with Carla for job security. Believe me, that was not helpful. And poor old Rick was getting teased terribly by David and Nick. It's, you know, bands are just they're kids, you know, they're like school kids when they get together. So there was that element of it. But I actually in that time kind of got very close to Rick because he was the one who just wanted to be in the room working all the time. And I'd never seen this stuff. They had all this old gear out. I'd never seen Rick's Farfisa or his Benson Echo or his, you know, I'd only seen his kind of super 80s Kurzweil zhuzhy stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it was great. So to see him, you know, with his old organs and everything was brilliant. And so we just used to sit and jam a lot. So yeah, I think quite a lot of grooves came out of that. And come about, you know, I mean, because my natural inclination is to play. And especially then, you know, it all gets better as you get older. Is not necessarily too much, but more than Pink Floyd would like. You know, so that you know, and so, I mean, often I come up with a line, and David would go, "That's nice, but get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that." And then and you know what? He was, you know, he's right. I mean, it's Pink Floyd. They know how it works.
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, sorry, I was going to say, you mentioned Rick there. I mean, not many people talk about him. He was a quiet man, wasn't he? So what was he like?
He was brilliant. He was also, he was incapable of, I mean, one of the reasons he was incapable of bullshit, just incapable of it. He could only ever speak his truth, you know, and, which could be very funny and very awkward sometimes.
I bet.
And he just wanted to be on his boat, and that's where I used to, you know, he'd spent 20 years being bullied by someone, so you know he was. I mean, that was the lovely thing about that album, was seeing this guy come back to life, you know. Hence the song, which I had a hand in writing, which was nice. And you know, he was always. That's why I used to sail with him. I sailed the Atlantic with him.
Oh wow.
He used to do that every year.
Fantastic.
To sail the Atlantic Ocean, yeah. And I always love that. Anyone who sails, I love, because, you know, cars are obvious and easy, but sailing is elemental, and it's how the world was found, and it's, you know, there's something spiritual about it. So you know, always trust people who sail. And I live my life by that.
There's a t-shirt in there somewhere.
Yeah, there is. And that's why I used to love being with him on his boat. Because, you know, because that's where he was happy, and he was confident and in control and everything, you know. So, but yeah, no, he was a love. I mean, I used to love just, him. I mean, one of my sort of most touching memories, and of course, if it was in the days of iPhones, I would have just bloody recorded it, but I didn't. Was when Stanley, our son, was born. We went down to France, his lovely house in France, and he had this piano. There was a piano in the house of France. There was something about it where I remember, whenever we went there, I would walk in the door, I'd sit at that piano, and you'd come up with an idea.
Oh.
It would
Magical.
make you have an idea. Yeah, there was something about it. And I just remember one time when Stanley was literally, he's just a couple of months old, and Rick sat him on his lap, and Stan's just going bang, ding, ding, dang, just whacking at the piano in that way that babies do. And Rick just was coming up with chords underneath him, sort of weaving around the sort of, Rick Wright chords around it. And it was just sublime. And and I was thinking, Stan, if you had any idea what was happening right now.
Oh, incredible memories, wonderful stuff. And then just someone else to touch on, Nick Mason. Obviously, you worked with him for many, many years, but the Saucerful of Secrets stuff, which has been going on for the last, was it maybe 6 or 7 years now? Is it something like that? But
no, it's 5 years. It's
was it
5
5?
years. Yeah. Well, not. I mean, annoyingly, we had a 2-year break.
Yeah, of course.
We were, lockdown happened the week before we were starting rehearsals for our next tour. So yeah, that's amazing. So we kind of made up for it last year. Because I've never toured like this before, and Nick certainly hasn't. Like I said, this is the first time he's ever slept on a tour bus,
Wow.
and he loves it and it's a sort of touring that now as I used to love, the thing of just hanging around, being in a city for 3 days and just doing. Whereas now, can we just get on with it, So we moved so fast. Like in Europe, we did 60 shows in 90 days in 29 countries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Is,
a lot of traveling. And then you went across to America, didn't you, as well last year? And then you did a lot of stuff
5 weeks
with
in America.
Yeah, Pantheon Podcasts, who Vintage Rock Pod are a proud part of as well. And you
Oh,
met
okay.
a lot of people across there. And I know you did a lot of interviews with the different podcasts which are involved. And that American tour went down an absolute treat. Everyone was saying what a fantastic show it was. And went so well for you guys.
Yeah, no, it went brilliantly. Although because it was the third time that tour had been rebooked. So some of the venues were weird. We seemed to end up in a lot of musical theaters, places that would sort of have Frozen on the rest of the time, rather than, and it's kind of, for us, it was actually the more rock and roll theaters tended to work better. But yeah, no, it was a great tour. And of course, Gary and I still managed to keep our podcast going all the way through all of that. So, which is great, but it's like slightly when you're having, because we research a lot. So
yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. And just quickly on the Saucerful of Secrets, I heard you say in another interview that it's the most fun and fresh thing you've ever done because you're getting to play the music that Pink Floyd probably didn't even play back then when they recorded it, or haven't done so for 40, 50 years. So it was so nice to go back to that psychedelic stuff and play the stuff that had just been sat for so long on vinyl, basically.
That's the thing, exactly. Where the key thing is, it's not new, but it's fresh.
Yes,
it feels really fresh. These songs feel fresh. I think that songs get tired from being played too much. I'm sure comfortably Num's going, oh, can I just have a rest? And yeah, that's the thing. A lot of it hasn't been played, but also it's because what's lovely is it connects Nick to who he was. That kid that he was, and it connects everyone else to who they were. It connects me to my first band. It connects Gary to him as a kid, so and it has this lovely typical effect. But also, because it's kind of Pink Floyd as a pop group, and it's playful, and a lot of it's light. I mean, a lot of it's still quite dark and intense, but there's also all the different colors. I mean, stuff like Obscured by Clouds, where we go into, and when Nick's laying down this like full-on krautrock groove, and it's, so it's great the places it goes.